All right, so welcome back, Elaine, to the Zoom room. Nice to see you again. Second time today. Brief break. So tonight we're going to do another section of the text. This one is section 2 of chapter 9, which is about sin and error. It's called Sin versus Error. So should be pretty interesting to just look at the difference between those in some detail. And upgrade, learn how to upgrade your apparent sins into errors. As it makes quite a difference, as you're just going to tell us. So,
right.
All right. So we're looking at just okay. Are you texting? You ready? Sounds like you're texting. You ready, Elaine?
You must have very sharp ears. Can you hear that?
Oh, I can hear the
Click,
I can
click.
hear, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So you
Can't
ready?
get away with anything. Yeah, sorry.
No,
It's just.
it's okay. I mean, there was a little hiatus, so that's fine. But
Yeah,
we're
I'm
gonna start now,
concentrating. Yeah,
okay.
I'm ready.
All right. So let me share my screen. Yeah, I've got about an hour and a half. So let's
Yeah.
see if we can get 8 paragraphs done in an hour and a half, shall we?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, Sin versus Error, chapter 19, section 2. I think not much to translate in that one. Paragraph 1. So just go straight into the alternative. Oh, hang on. Am I not? Somehow I didn't do number 1. Give me a moment. I'll fix that. We're going to get number 1 into that. Let's just go. Okay. All right. So you want to read that one?
It is essential that I do not confuse error with sin. And it is this distinction that makes awakening possible. For error can be corrected and the wrong mind right. But sin, where
right.
it and the wrong made right. But sin, where it possible, would be irreversible. The belief in sin is necessarily based on firm conviction that minds, not bodies, can attack. And so my mind is guilty and will forever remain so unless a mind not part of it can give it absolution. Sin calls for the punishment as error does for correction. And the belief that punishment is correction is clearly insane.
Okay, so what's he saying here in paragraph 1?
Well, it's essential that we don't confuse error with sin. Because this distinction that makes awakening possible. This error can be corrected and the wrong made right. So the sin, but sin where it possible would be irreversible. So it's saying that the firm conviction of we're not bodies and that the mind can attack. So the mind is guilty, will forever remain Sin calls for punishment. Well, sin calls for punishment as error does for correction. And the belief that punishment is correction is clearly insane. Right. Yeah. Well, yes, it is insane. So
mind not part of it
we're
can give
believing
it
in the sin.
absolution. So what do you think about that?
So, yeah. So sin calls for
A
punishment.
mind
of
not
this-
part of it can give it absolution. So he's actually referring, if you look at this carefully, he's actually referring to the confession, I think, indirectly here, the ritual of confession in the Catholic
yes,
Church.
yes.
Because that a mind not part of it, right? So another mind, the priest, can give it absolution from its sin, which is not true. Only the mind itself can let go of the idea of sin. And so there's an externalization of absolution in that confession ritual, which never, achieves anything, because you haven't let go of sin permanently. So you come back and you confess your sins again the next week. So it's temporary. It's like I might feel a little bit better, but I haven't dropped the idea of sin and guilt at all. In fact, I've reinforced it through this ritual of confessing my apparent sins. So I think it's an indirect reference to the confession. That's how I interpret it anyway. What do you think?
I think it is.
Unless the mind not part of it can give it absolution. And it's not a big mind, it's a small mind. So I suppose you could also think that absolution might come from God or Jesus as well. So it's not anything external to you can give you absolution, but you yourself can't. So you're a miserable sinner until something or someone that's beyond you pardons you. But the problem is you retain the belief. So actually that pardon is meaningless if you still believe you're a sinner.
Yeah.
And the key difference here between sin and error is that sin is permanent and it's punishable. Those are the two characteristics of it. And both of those characteristics, permanent and punishable, make it real in your perception, which is of course what the ego is trying to do. So it's permanent, it's punishable, and therefore it's real. Whereas an error, okay, well, it's just a mistake. So this isn't permanent, it's temporary, it can be corrected. And it's not punishable. An error is just something you can correct. So why would you need punishment for something that can be corrected? So it's a very different mindset, isn't it? Attitude to the same situation, whatever seems to happen. How you categorize it, how you perceive it and judge it is pretty critical, as a sin was an error. So he's just making that distinction clearly for us and saying, well, these are the choices. As always, there's a choice, and the one is part of the ego's thought system, the other is part of the Holy Spirit's thought system. So choose wisely. And this distinction between error and sin makes awakening possible, because anything can be perceived correctly as an error rather than as a sin. Whatever seems to have happened, whatever you've done, whatever someone else has done, it can all be perceived as an error to be corrected rather than something that's permanent, real, and punishable. And you got to really watch your mind in the way you think of errors, your errors and other people's errors. Do you make them permanent? Do you make them real? Do you make them punishable? In that case, you're making them into sin, and then there's no absolution. There's no possibility of freedom. If you see that they're just an error, then you can let them go. Errors can be corrected. Okay, so anything else on number one? I think we could probably move on from
No,
that to number two.
That's clear.
Yeah, nice intro to it. So you read it in the original until number 4, and then a few things
Yeah.
translating 4 and 5 and 7. So
Sin is not an
read it in
error.
the
Or read
alternative
it.
from
So
in the alternative, yeah. Until
Okay.
yeah, I'll highlight it
Okay.
until number 4.
Sin is not an error, for sin entails an arrogance which the idea of error lacks. To sin would be to violate reality and succeed. Sin is the damnation that attack is real.
No, proclamation. Proclamation.
Proclamation that attack is real and guilt is justified.
Mm.
And so do I go into the original?
And that's what sin's saying. You know, so that's the original. It assumes the Son of God is guilty.
It assumes that the Son of God is guilty and has thus succeeded in losing his innocence and making himself what God created not. It assumes the extension of perfect love is guilty and so has succeeded in losing its innocence and making itself what source does not extend. Thus is creation seen as not eternal and the will of God open to opposition and defeat. And therefore, extension is perceived as not being eternal, and the awareness of source open to opposition and defeat. Sin is the grand illusion underlying all the ego's grandiosity. Sin is the grand illusion underlying all the belief in separation's grandiosity. For by it God himself is changed and rendered incomplete. For by it pure formless awareness of perfect love itself is changed and rendered incomplete.
Made incomplete. Okay, so what's he? Yeah.
Well, sin
What's he saying here?
well, sin's not an error. Sin entails arrogance, which the idea of error lacks. It's just trying to think how to put this. Well, sin is the main grand illusion of the separate self, and underlying all the belief in separation's grandiosity. They're even saying that pure formless awareness itself is changed and made incomplete when pure formless awareness it doesn't change and it is complete. So it's the opposite. I'm sorry, I'm not putting this quite in layman's terms. Sin is the proper recognition that guilt is justified. Well, it's saying that sin is justified and it's not changeable. You can't. And guilt is justified, and so it assumes that the extension of perfect love is guilty. And so losing its innocence. Yeah.
Just have a quick look at this, shall we? Where are we? That one. We want. Yeah, we're in. Where are we? That one is what we want. Back to our diagram. So you look where sin and guilt sit on the diagram. Descent into hell. So you have the thoughts of separation, which is just a tiny mad idea of separation, but then we wanted it, we desired it, so we believed in it, so we made it into something, into like an entity, which we call the ego or consciousness, or the belief in separation, which now seems to have some existence in our minds, and then that creates further fragmentation. We now believe that we're actually an individual selves evolved from the idea of separation. And that separate identity name, as soon as you name it and you say, this is true, this is reality, really what you've done then is you've entrenched the idea that you have destroyed God or love, perfect oneness, because you can't be a separate self without denying perfect love, pure formless awareness of perfect love. And so this, the sin of doing that then implies that you're guilty for doing that. So sin and guilt go hand in glove. And now you've confirmed that actually, yes, you have destroyed God, love, oneness, pure formless awareness, in order to have this separate identity. You must have destroyed it. And so what underpins the ego's entire thought system is this idea that it's sinful, and that it is guilty just for existing. You see the problem? Just by apparently having existence is guilty at its core, because the only way it has existence is because it's denied pure formless awareness of perfect love. So it's had to destroy love, in other words, in order to exist. And so its very foundation is the sin, the original sin. This is really the true meaning of it. Of using the power of God anymore. Perfect love is nowhere. I'm going to obliterate that in my mind, and I'm going to believe in this individual self that I've created. And so then sin and guilt underpin the ego's entire identity, and they are then the engine room of all of the dysfunction that then proceeds from it. See? So it starts to get nasty once you go down into the guilt and the sin, because guilt demands punishment, and then you have a fear of punishment, false must, that it means that attack seems to be real as well, because you now think you're going to be vengeful God. That was in one of the recent text sections. And so you've got fear and you've got attack going on, and the mind is really now in some distress. It's not happy at all. And that all comes from the tiny mad idea believed in, and then guilt and sin really entrench that belief in your consciousness and say, yes, this is the truth, this is real, and this is permanent. It's permanent, so it's real, and therefore it's punishable. And so now you have the expectation of punishment that appears to be real. So this is the genesis of the whole thought system. And now you've got this really nasty idea of sin and guilt at the very core foundation of your thought system. And of course that's going to cause havoc in your mind. And when that's projected out, it's going to cause havoc in the external world, because guilt demands punishment, fear, attack, they all come from this idea of guilt. And sin is then the justification for guilt, as he says. So that's just, diving into the metaphysics a little bit, just so where you can see, once again, we've looked at that diagram many times, But can you see where the diagram comes from? I mean, it's all in the text. It's just diagrammatically stated to make it easy just to look at and sort of get in a glance. That's a grand illusion underlying all the belief in separation's grandiosity, because it underpins the entire ego identity. And without sin, the ego could not continue to exist. That's the truth. If you didn't believe you destroyed perfect love, then no problem. Nothing's really gone wrong, has it? There's no sin. You just made an error. The error was that you thought you did, but you didn't really. That's still there. So there is no sin. There's only pure formless awareness of perfect love. And you made a time in your mind. And all its consequences are just a mistake. Okay, does that make sense? So let's move on to number 3.
The alternative.
Yeah, I think so. There's not much to translate there. I don't think there's anything actually.
Right. I can be mistaken. I can deceive myself. I can even turn the power of my mind against myself. But I cannot sin. There is nothing I can do that would really change reality in any way, nor make me really guilty. That is what sin would do, for such is its purpose. Yet for all the wild insanity inherent in the whole idea of sin, it is impossible. For the wages of sin is death, and how can the immortal die?
So what's he saying here?
We've turned the power of our mind against the self, the true self. But, it's not possible to sin. There's nothing we can do to change our real reality in any way. And nor can it make us really guilty. But this is what sin will do. That is its main purpose.
Yeah. So he's telling us what it's trying to do, and then he's telling us, but this is just insane and it's not possible. It's an impossible idea. How can the immortal die? If you're truly immortal, then how can you simply die?
Oh, paused. Are you there?
Dropped out there.
Yeah.
So let's try again. Okay, so yeah, so number 3, saying it's really impossible. You can't actually do this. You just think you can, but actually the idea is impossible. And in that is the undoing of the ego's thought system, because without sin and guilt, it wouldn't exist. Okay, so I'll read number 4 in the alternative until you get to paragraph 3, sentence 3.
A major tenet in the belief in separations in sane religion is that sin is not error, but truth, and it is innocence, that would deceive. Purity is seen as arrogance, and the acceptance of the self as sinful is perceived as holiness.
So just pause there. I mean, if you look at particularly the Catholic Church, you know, sin has been so revered and venerated that this is what he's saying. It seems to be holiness. It seems to be the most sacred idea in their thought system, the idea of original sin. And we all born sinners, and then they have the ritual of confession to try and mitigate it. But it's really deeply entrenched in the thought system that's behind the whole institution, which is what he's saying. Purity is seen as arrogance. So if you claim that you are innocent and pure, you know, the Catholic theologian or priest is going to say, oh, no, you're not. No, that's a mistake, my friend. You are born into sin. Don't forget it. You know, we have original sin. And you know, this is the doctrine of the whole church, and the teaching is based on that, which is what he's really saying here, isn't it? And if you say, well, I'm completely innocent and pure, they'll go, how arrogant, how dare you? You know, you're an original sinner. We all sin. We all fall short of the grace of God, but you know, we'll come to confession and we'll say our Hail Marys and we'll go to church, and somehow we'll try and make ourselves feel a bit better about it. Even though we're sinners, and we believe that because we're sinners, God will punish us. Although there's some kind of mercy in Jesus is supposed to give us mercy, and hence the ritual of confession. But it's all pretty confused and confusing, isn't it? So do you believe in it or not?
Yeah, it's very confusing.
Yeah, very confusing, because it doesn't actually make sense. If you really look at the doctrine, it's contradictory. And it's got this fundamental falsity at its core, which is that, you know, sin and guilt are real. And that's kind of the most sacrosanct concept in the thought system, that, you know, sin is real. There's original sin. We're born into it, and there's nothing you can do. If you're human, then you're a sinner, and all you can do is come, you know, to confession. It's through the confession ritual, but of course it doesn't go away. You're still a sinner. So that just perpetuates it.
Sad.
So it's just pointing out the insanity of these thought systems, and asking us to see it, you know, really honestly. It's like, well, okay, but it's so simple. It's not real and it's not true. The acceptance of the self as sinful is perceived as holiness. It's perceived as purity. So they've totally switched it around. Sin is seen as purity. You know, the more sinful you are, somehow that's good. It's bizarre, really. It's a total inversion of the truth. But you know, especially in the Middle Ages, when Catholicism was at its height, I mean, they absolutely milked it out of sin. They made a fortune because they would get people into the state of, oh, you know, you miserable sinners, and you'll be punished by this vengeful, wrathful God, but we'll give you a way out. So you can actually buy your way into heaven. That was
No.
the absolutely fallacious, ridiculous, um, con, really, that the Catholic Church were engaged in. It was a total con job. That you could buy your way into heaven, and you could also buy your relatives' way into heaven. They extended it. If you had enough money, you could buy other people's way into heaven. Isn't that good?
No.
And they were called indulgences, and they absolutely coined it because the people were ignorant. They didn't read themselves, and these preachers would go around preaching fire and brimstone, and you shall go to hell, and you'll burn in hell, and it's going to be it's going to be so hellish and awful, but just put a couple of coins in the jar and everything will be all right.
Mad.
And people actually did it extraordinarily.
I know.
They made a lot of money because the people were ignorant. They weren't educated. They didn't read themselves. And it took someone like Martin Luther, who was an educated priest, to go, no, this is not right. I just need to read the scripture. You read the scripture and you go, this has nothing to do with indulgences in scripture that you can buy your way into heaven. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that. So this has been made up. Clearly, it's a con job because the Catholic Church wants to make money, and they're using the concept of sin and guilt and really milking it for all it's worth to do it. And but to do that, he had to overcome his own sense of sin and guilt. So you really struggle because it's such a, you're born into this thought system. You're taught that you're a sinner pretty much from the first time you're in church, which is a young person, child of maybe, I don't know when they start going to church, but 3-4 years old, and so it's like ingrained into you that you're the sinner. And but he, to his credit, he broke through that. He looked at the scripture, that Bible verse which says, not by works, but by grace we are saved. I'll find it for you. So not.
Yep, he also got
by works.
He got assassinated also, didn't he, Martin?
No, he didn't actually. They were going to take him out. He had to go and face a whole kind of trial at the Parliament called Worms, and they were saying you must recant and renounce all of your whatever you've said and written, or we'll kill you. And to his credit, he stood his ground. He said, no, I cannot do that. So
are you talking about Martin Luther King, the actual?
No, Martin Luther.
Oh, sorry.
No,
yes.
this is
sorry, yes.
no,
yes.
Martin Luther, who was in the 15th century.
I see.
He was the guy who kicked off the Reformation. Martin Luther King would have been named after. Martin Luther was he was named after. And so he was lucky because they didn't do it straight away. They said, okay, well, I don't know. They gave him some temporary reprieve. They said, you can go away, and but you've got to come back and kind of be executed in 10 days or something. I don't know. It was a little weird. I don't think they wanted to do it straight away because it was controversial and he had supporters. And then his benefactor, who was one of the wealthy princes in Germany, actually arranged for his carriage. They went in horse and cart in those days to be hijacked. And apparently he was killed, but he wasn't. He took him away, and he went to a castle, and he was kept safe there for a couple of years, so that it kind of all blew over, and they couldn't find him. And then he spent his last. I think he came out of that, and then he got married, and he had a family, and so he escaped it because he had some powerful protectors. But I mean, that's, you take your hat off to these guys. Imagine you're standing in front of this parliament and you're like, okay, I know what I've said is the truth, but I'm probably going to have to die for this because they're going to put me to death, and they might burn me at the stake because that's the kind of thing they did. It was barbaric. This is going to be incredibly painful death, and I have to stand up and I have to really, say, no, I'm willing to die for this.
That's a brave person.
Well, it's Well, there's something about the truth that will do that. He
Yes,
recorded
it's
that
so
he didn't
powerful.
have a direct experience of God, and he was like, "Well, God hasn't spoken to me," and he wanted it. And then in the intermission, given, I don't know, a few hours to think about it. They said, "Look, ultimatum is you will recant or you're going to die. So go away and think about it. We'll give you a few hours, and then come back this afternoon and you tell us your answer."
Mm.
And obviously in that time he was like, he prayed and he said, I heard God speak to me, and I heard God's voice, and that was what gave him the inspiration. So the Holy Spirit probably came to him and said, okay, just trust, trust me, it's going to be okay, stick to your guns, and it's going to be okay, you're not going to die. We don't know exactly what was said, but that obviously gave him the courage to stand up and confront them. And so we're very fortunate because people like that did what they did and faced down this, really, it's a nasty thought system of sin and guilt. That's what he was basically facing down and saying, this is wrong. Because the Reformation was really based on this single work, the idea that grace alone would save you. It wasn't by works, your efforts or your works. You couldn't do stuff to get yourself into heaven. That was really, what he understood, which then got over all of the indulgences and all the things the Catholic Church was saying you could do to get into heaven. And he said, but the scripture says otherwise. So we must go according to the scripture. So it was like that was his, like we've had the course, that was his reference point. He was like, what does the Bible say? And he would, because he could read it, he would then interpret it for himself, say, well, your interpretation is incorrect. The church's interpretation was false.
It's worth reading his biography.
And they knew it, but they didn't want to admit it.
Is there a book about him?
Yeah. Well, I think there's been some biographies written. There's a movie that was made on YouTube. So
I'll watch that.
Sometime in the program, not too far away, I think I'll send it out.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah,
it's
that's
got
great.
his,
I'll watch
the
that.
video's got his sort of life. Yeah, quite interesting.
That'd be great. Yeah,
and so you see that down the ages, it's been pretty primary in human consciousness, and it takes enlightened or awakening beings to challenge it, and that's what he did. And because he challenged it, and at the same time the printing press was invented so he could actually publish his ideas, he became the world's best-selling author, the world's first best-selling author. The printers just published everything he printed, and they sold his books without giving him a cent. How's that? There's no copyright in those days. So they just went, okay, well, we'll just take your work and we'll publish it. But he was like, well, I don't mind because it's getting the truth out.
Yeah.
And he had a benefactor, so he wasn't going to starve. But that is what kicked. If you look at history, the Reformation of Europe, which was really the catalyst for the Renaissance, and then that led into the Industrial Age, because it was a fundamental change in thinking. It was kicked off by him, and it was because of his insight into sin and guilt that he understood that really we're saved by grace, and there is a counterforce. This grace is a counterforce to the dreadful sin and guilt that the Catholic Church is trying to impose upon people, and that single insight led him to write his works, and he posted his 95 treatises, 95 points on the Church at Wittenberg, and that kicked off the whole Reformation. And because it was a freedom, more freedom from sin and guilt, the mind was released to an extent, and it released a lot of energy, a lot of creative energy, and that was then the catalyst for the transformation of Europe and the Renaissance age, and the flower. It was like an awakening, part of the awakening, part of the at-one-ment, because he was willing to challenge this false belief in sin and guilt. and go up against its major weapon, which is death, of course, because the sin and guilt demand that you die. And so that's what he had to face and overcame it. So quite interesting when you look at history to see how this has played out and how this has had a major impact on certainly Western civilization, because it transformed Europe. And so now 500 years later, we have the product, the consequence of all that, all those changes. If we'd still been in the Dark Ages under the sort of rule of the Catholic Church, we wouldn't have any of this. It needed a liberation from that thought system. And so wouldn't it be interesting if you did history and they told you this? They don't tell you this, do they?
No.
They don't relate it to spiritual, and then it becomes quite fascinating. I found it fascinating. It's like, okay.
Yeah,
So actually what kicked off the whole Reformation of Europe was one man's mystic experience. If you really boil it down, you could say, well, someone else might have done it. Probably someone else would have. The time is ripe. Someone else would have, but he was the chosen one. He had the experience, and he was chosen to do that work in that time. And because of his, one night, the mystic experience where he really got beyond sin and guilt, and he understood on a deeper level the meaning of this Bible verse, from Ephesians 2, that by grace, we are saved. For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourselves, it is the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. So that simple couple of lines, he couldn't grasp it because he had too much sin and guilt in his mind. So he had to, he spent a whole night just praying, meditating, and eventually, in the early hours of the morning, broke through into another understanding of it. That he really started getting it and feeling it. He would have felt some of that grace of God, and that liberated his mind enough to then inspire him to do what he did subsequently. So one mystic experience kicked off the entire Reformation of Europe, and then consequently the Renaissance, and then consequently the Industrial Age, and consequently we're now in the Information Age and the Knowledge Age. You see, it's quite extraordinary, one of the sequence of events, because he was just a catalyst that started that whole movement. As you say, probably would have happened anyway, but then it would happen via someone else's mystic experience. It just happened that he was the one. And so you can start to trace it back and go, well, actually all the real change in the world is based on spiritual truth. It's when people come to an awareness of truth, and they actually live it. They walk the talk, and they speak it, and they act it, and they live it consistently, then the world changed. And so he was one of those rare characters who did that in the dream. Okay, anyway, it's I digress a bit, but it's an interesting story.
Like to see the film. Yeah, see the film. I'll have a little look on Google.
Yeah. Well, you can Google it on YouTube. Go to YouTube. There's
or you're putting the film on anyway.
Free one. And I will send it out at some point. Yeah, I'm not sure where it is in the program exactly, but it's there, one of the recommended movies at some point in our next whatever, how long we've been going. Next 6 months or so.
Yeah.
We're about 6 months into it, aren't we? So all right, so carry on with number 5.
Yeah. Any attempt to
reinterpret sin as error.
Yeah. Any attempt to reinterpret sin as error is always indefensible to the belief in separation. The idea of sin is wholly sacrosanct to its thought system and quite inapproachable except with reverence and awe. It is the most holy concept in the belief in separation system, lovely and powerful, wholly true, and necessarily protected with every defense at its disposal. For here lies its best defense, which all the others serve. Here is the armor, its protection, and the fundamental purpose of the special relationship in its interpretation.
Yeah. So what's he saying there?
Yeah. So back to so any attempt to reinterpret sin as error is always indefensible to the belief in separation. Sin is holy. I don't know what that means. Sacrosanct. Sacrosanct. What does that mean?
Sacrosanct. It means it's sacred.
Oh, yeah.
It's
So it's the top. Yeah.
Let's look it up. It means it's sacred. It's beyond question, regarded as too important or valuable to be interfered with. Okay, so that's interesting. And his right to work has been upheld as sacrosanct. Too important or valuable to be interfered with. So we'll keep it as sacrosanct, because that's exactly what he means. Too important or valuable to be interfered with.
And so it's to be in awe.
Quite unapproachable, except with reverence and awe.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you look at the example would be, in the days gone by, not so much now, but still, I mean, the Catholic Church has this, dreadful hangover of guilt and sin. But in the Middle Ages, Dark Ages, as they were called, why were they dark? Because of all the sin and the guilt. That's why they were dark. And it was, the concept of original sin, that we're all born into sin and we sinners, was absolutely sacrosanct. And him questioning it, Martin Luther questioning that, was seen as heresy. They said, you're a heretic. You're going to be burned at the stake because of this heresy, because they'd made sin into this, sacrosanct idea in a thought system, even though Yeshua didn't teach it at all. That had nothing to do with Yeshua's teaching whatsoever. In fact, Yeshua went around healing people. If you watch The Chosen, you'll see they always say, whenever he does a healing, he says, your sins are forgiven. Your sins are forgiven, you're free. And actually, that's the foundation of the healing, because the mind is then released from its sin, because the mind believes that he's the Son of God and he's this, he's the Messiah. The mind then takes his word as true and then releases itself because he said so, you see. Actually, he's just a man stating the truth, but people believe it. And so then it's powerful. And then the healings happen because they've just released themselves from the source of their sickness. Do you understand? That the source of sickness is guilt and sin. So you release the mind from sin, well, then the cause is gone, so must the effect be gone. And so then the miraculous healings happen because he's released them from sin and guilt. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so it's the most holy concept. I'll leave holy there because it's quite nice in that concept. Powerful, holy, true, and necessary, protected, with every defense at its disposal. Right? So you look at how, still to this day, the Catholic Church defends this thought system. Every defense at the disposal. It lies at the core of their so-called church and ministry. Without it, the ritual of confession wouldn't be necessary, and you understand there would be no hook point. Okay, well, if you're free and you're not guilty, why do you need to come back to church to listen to us telling you that you're sinners and confess your sins? You don't need to, do you? You're free.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it keeps the whole organization going. Sin and guilt. That's why it's sacrosanct to its thought system. But fortunately, we don't have to buy it. We can just, with this mind training, you can just look at it and go, okay, well, I get that. That's completely illusory and false, and I want nothing to do with it. And none of its defenses. I'm willing to let go of all the defenses. You'll notice that someone's very formally, fundamentally religious. Let's say they're Catholic, religious. They will defend that error. That's all it is. The error, the belief that sin is real and deserves punishment. They will defend that almost to the death. Becomes like an as he says, a sacrosanct part of their thought system, because it defines them. They've identified with themselves as Catholic, and really identified with the church. So it's part of their identity, and the ego feels threatened when you question its identity. Okay.
Yeah.
Happy with number 5?
Yes. Very clear.
Moving on to 6 then.
It can indeed be said that the belief in separation made its world on sin. Only in such a world could everything be upside down. This is the strange illusion that makes the clouds of guilt seem heavy and impenetrable. The solidness that this world's foundation seems to have is found on this. For sin has changed extension from the idea of pure formless awareness of perfect love to an idea that belief in separation wants. A world it rules made up of bodies, mindless and capable of complete corruption and decay. If this is a mistake, it can be undone easily by truth. Any mistake can be corrected. Can be corrected.
So just pause it there, because it's quite a long paragraph.
Yeah.
What's he saying up to that point?
Well, the belief in separation is based on the world on sin, and it's all upside down. It is a very strange illusion that makes the clouds of guilt seem heavy, and it's the whole world is founded on this solidness. It's
so again, if we look at our diagram here, underpinning the world, so the projection of the Big Bang is the projection of sin and guilt, fear outwards. So it rests on the foundation of the metaphysical principles of guilt and sin and fear. So this is the insight that the course has, which, as far as I'm aware, no other discipline has. No other, like science or other religion, other spiritual path gives this level of clarity. Saying no, the cause of the entire manifest universe is just these ideas. Is caused because you believe you really have separated from your source. You believe you've denied it. Now you're guilty and you're sinful for that. And the guilt and the sin then create this massive fear in you. False expectation, the punishment appearing real, and the desire to run away. You're going to be punished now in your misperception. And so you panic and you want to go somewhere and you want to run away. And the ego invents a place for you to run to by literally going out of its mind and projecting thought outwards to create this illusory universe. And you've just run away from the truth. So this whole complex of the separation and the guilt and the sin and the fear and the attack thoughts is what creates the energy for the Big Bang. So it's an explosion of immense proportions, just energy like exploding out. Okay, so what kicked it off then? Could only be mind, couldn't it? So it's the mind in this state of just complete chaos and disorder projects itself out into the thought, which is energy, and then it just explodes out, something from nothing apparently, but there was a mind that did it. And underlying the ego mind is the pure formless awareness of perfect love that pre-existed, the ego mind and the idea of guilt and sin and the separation and the projection of it outwards as the manifest physical universe. There must have been something before. Otherwise, where did it all come from? And that's what science can't answer. Well, it came from this eternal, infinite presence, and that's still there. And then there was a split off that. And the idea of separation split off, became guilt and sin and fear and attack, and then you well into this ego thought system. And we literally go out of our minds because of the intensity of all of this. We look at it now and we try and deconstruct it, but we have no idea of what that first moment of separation must have felt like. Awful. It must have been horrific.
Yeah.
And then now it's all been covered over, and we kind of live in the aftermath of this horrific
explosion.
Departure from our true source. And we try and work. So we're stuck here now in a horror show at the bottom of the ladder of separation as helpless, enervated, living a helpless, enervated little life, a limitation, lack, loneliness, and suffering before their bodies die. Before our bodies die, and that all seems to be very real. And only a teaching like this that says, no, this isn't real, is going to help us out of our delusions. Okay.
For sin has changed extension from an idea of perfect love to an idea, the belief in separation once. A world it rules, made up of bodies, mindless and capable of complete corruption and decay. If this is a mistake, it can be undone easily by truth. Any mistake can be corrected if truth is left to judge it. But if the mistake is given the status of truth, to what can it be brought? The holiness of sin is kept in place by just this strange device. As truth, it is inviolate, and everything is brought to it for judgment. As a mistake, it must be brought to truth. It is impossible to have faith in sin, for sin is faithlessness. Yet it is possible to have faith that a mistake can be corrected.
Yeah. So what's he saying here in summary?
Well, it's impossible to have faith in sin, or sin is faithlessness. Yes. Well, I mean, if this is a mistake, it can be undone easily by the truth, and a mistake can be corrected. if truth is left to judge it. But if the mistake is the other way around, then that's when the sin comes in. I don't know what it means by this strange device. It's kept in place by this strange device. Don't know.
Was that strange device? Where is it? Just show me.
And number 9.
9. Right. Yeah. So the strange device is the mistake is given the status of truth to what can it be brought. So you make the mistake into the truth, and you say this is true, and you can't bring it to the truth because you've said the truth is the mistake. Truth is the error. So the holiness of sin is kept in place by just a strange device. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So it's all false. You've made sin true, and then you must make the truth false.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
This truth that is inviolate, right? So it can't be questioned. Inviolate means, again, look at these. Too important or valuable to be changed. Inviolate, free or safe from injury or violation. So it cannot be undermined. It cannot be attacked. It's invulnerable. Inviolate, invulnerable, maybe a better word. What do you think?
Yeah.
More understandable, maybe.
Yeah. A mistake, it must be called.
Everything is brought to it for judgment. Mistake, it must be brought to truth. Possible to have faith in sin, for sin is faithlessness. It is possible to have faith that a mistake can be corrected. So we can just turn it around, say this isn't true. It's that simple. It's just an error.
Right, that's easier.
Anything we've ever done, whatever anyone has ever done, is just a mistake. It's an error. So it's not permanent. It's not real. It's not punishable. It's just a mistake that can be corrected. And then they are free because they can correct it, and you're free of condemning them and saying this error is now permanent and punishable. Okay, so happy with number 6.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, there's no stone, and all the egos embattled, all separations embattled citadel.
Do I do the alternative?
Yeah, the alternative is the Son of God is the extension of perfect love, and God is pure formless awareness.
Right. There is no stone in all the belief in separations embattled citadel that is more heavily defended than the idea that sin is real. The natural expression of what the extension of perfect love has made itself to be and what it is. To the belief in separation, there is no mistake, for this is its reality. This is the truth from which escape will always be. And I can't see the rest of it. always be impossible. This is its past, its present, and its future, for it has somehow managed to corrupt its source, change its mind completely, mourn then the death of pure, formless awareness of perfect love, whom sin has killed. And this would be the belief in separation's wish, which in its madness it believes it has accomplished.
It's reality, truth from which. Okay, so what's he saying here?
Well, it's just getting back to the belief in separation. It's won't budge. It's just it sees this is the truth, the reality, and it's just in the past and present and future. It's managed to corrupt its source and change its mind completely. Mourn, death, perfect love, which whom sin has killed. So sin has killed all of the perfect love. So it's just the madness. It's it's a belief in the separate self's wish, and it's just total madness. Just keep they believe, the separate self believes in this sin is real. Yeah. Just sees itself as the reality, and it won't move.
No. Yeah, it's a fixed delusional belief that it really has done this. It has destroyed love, and now there's a price to pay. There is guilt and there is punishment, and it's fixated on that. It won't let that whole concept go. And this has become, so deeply entrenched in our psyches. It takes a lot of work to undo it. This belief in sin and guilt is really you've got to eliminate. You've got to get rid of that belief to awaken, because it's at the foundation of the ego. Okay, so any other thoughts on that?
No, it's clear.
Mind as just ego is just got obsessed and fixated on this false idea, and that's become a cornerstone of your thought system, and it has incredibly destructive effect. We're not aware because the ego doesn't tell us, but all of our pain and suffering and sickness and death comes from the idea of sin, because sin demands punishment and guilt. Sin means that guilt is justified. Guilt demands punishment for your imagined sin, and then you have fear and attack. You fear that you're going to be attacked, hurt. usually by some concept of a vengeful, wrathful God. And so sin kicks off all of that. It's really a disaster. Saying no more, just see it for what it is, and then you can correct it from an error to a mistake. Okay?
Yeah.
So last paragraph, number 8.
Yeah. Would I not rather that all this be nothing more than a mistake, entirely correctable, and so easily escaped from its whole correction is like walking through a mist into the sun. All that is.
Just read that again, right? Because you just
Did I?
does it make sense?
Okay. Yeah. Would I not rather that all this be nothing more than a mistake, entirely correctable, and so easily escaped from what its whole correction is?
So easily escaped from, you're escaping from it, that its whole correction is like walking through a mist into the sun.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying.
Yeah. So for all that is all it is.
Well, that
Perhaps
is all it is.
All that is all it is. Perhaps I would be tempted to agree with the belief in separation, that it is far better to be sinful than mistaken. Yet think I carefully before I allow myself to make this choice. Approach it not lightly, for it is the choice of hell or the state of pure formless awareness.
Choice and victimhood. Translating hell as victimhood and suffering. So sin makes us into victims, sin makes us suffer, or the state of pure formless awareness. Those are the choices, heaven or hell.
Mm-hmm. Is that simple?
No. Sin is hell. Very simple.
Mm.
So don't entertain it.
Mm. Yeah.
No way, shape, or form. It's either all true or all false. You can't have a little bit of sin being true.
Yeah.
It's either no sin or everything sinful.
Mm-hmm. So it's very easy.
So
Yeah.
Hmm?
Like just saying how easy it says to escape it, but we still stick with this the sin thought system. Yeah. Yeah.
So easily escaped. Well, he's encouraging us, but it's deep seated in your psyche.
Oh yeah.
It was like that to escape. We would have escaped it, but the problem is we don't know that it's even there. Yeah, we're born into human bodies, and this sin idea is deep seated, because it's the idea that we're actually sinful to be alive. We're sinful just to exist. Do you understand? That's how deep it goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
The very core of our being, we're sinful. That's the ego's idea.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not obviously. How can you ever establish any kind of functional identity and world based on that idea?
It's horrible.
It won't work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's an awful. So it's just
system.
highlighting the terrible thought system, and saying, well, fortunately, it's not true and it's not real. So you can correct it.
Just walk through the mist into the sun. Nice.
No, nice imagery.
Mm.
Okay. So done a little exact summary. We have Then do you want to read that?
Yeah. In the journey of awakening, it is crucial to differentiate between error and sin. Error can be corrected and made right, but sin, if possible, would be irreversible. Sin stems from the belief that minds, not bodies, can attack, rendering the mind guilty unless absolution is offered by a mind beyond its own. Sin seeks punishment, mistaking it for correction, which is a clear form of insanity. Sin is not merely an error, it carries an arrogance that surpasses the notion of making mistakes. It proclaims the reality of attack and justifies guilt. It assumes that the extension of pure formless awareness of perfect love, the Son of God, is guilty, having forfeited its innocence and transformed itself into something contrary to God's creation. Sin distorts the eternal nature of creation and allows opposition.
So I'm not sure why the AI decided to suddenly go to God rather than does this from time to time. Say perfect loves.
Creation.
Mention.
Sin distorts the eternal nature of extension and allows opposition and defeat to infiltrate perfect love's will.
Let's just say,
Sure.
formless. Awareness of perfect love.
It is the underlying illusion fueling the separate self's grandiosity. Altering the very essence of pure formless awareness.
The essence of perfect love.
Okay. Well, the Son of God while the Son of God can be mistaken, deceive itself and turn against itself with its own thoughts, it cannot truly sin. No action can fundamentally alter its reality or render it genuinely guilty. Sin's purpose is to achieve this change, but it remains an impossible concept. Sin leads to death, but how can the immortal truly die? The separate self's distorted belief system is sin as truth, presenting innocence as deceitful and purity as arrogance. It places the Son of God's reality as created by God, or pure formless awareness, with the idea of sinfulness, seeking to separate extension from the truth.
Yeah, the pause there, I'm just catching on with it. So belief in separation, belief sin is truth, ending innocence as deceitful and purity as arrogance. Innocence is deceitful. purity is. This is the infinite perfect large reality.
As created by pure formless awareness.
And by God, idea of sinfulness, of sinful. You can just separate extension from the truth.
The separate self fiercely
Call
defends
it the belief in separation.
or the belief in separation. Fiercely defends where are we?
The idea of sin.
Fiercely defends the idea of sin, deeming it holy and sacrosanct, utilizing it as the cornerstone of its defense mechanism and the core purpose of special relationships.
The pure and beyond questioning. Cornerstones, defense mechanisms. And the making it the cornerstone, so making it cornerstone of its defense mechanisms. Such as special relationships. Okay, and belief in separation.
The belief in separation built its world upon sin, creating an upside-down realm where guilt appears impenetrable. Sin solidifies the foundation of the illusory world, transforming extension from pure formless awareness, this idea, into the belief in separation's ideal. Realm ruled by corruptible bodies, devoid of consciousness. However, this mistake can easily be undone by truth, which serves as the ultimate judge. Faith in sin is impossible, as sin implies faithlessness. But faith in the correction of mistakes is possible.
All right. Well, I can easily can easily correct this. Can easily correct this mistake by bringing it to the truth, which is the ultimate judge. Faith in sin is impossible. Sin implies faithlessness. My faith in the correction of mistakes is possible. Okay, 2 more paragraphs.
Yeah. The belief in separation staunchly defends the idea that sin is real, considering it the natural expression of what extension of pure formless awareness of perfect love has become. It sees this as the unchangeable truth, impossible to escape from, and mourns the death of pure formless awareness of perfect love. And mourns the death of pure formless awareness of perfect love. That sin supposedly accomplished, a wish born from the ego, from the separate self, the belief in belief in separate self.
And the ego is delusional madness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so rather than embracing sin, rather than accepting
Rather than accepting sin
sin is real,
is real, it is preferable to view it as correctable mistake, one that can be effortlessly escaped, like walking through the mist into the sun. The choice between sin and the state of pure formless awareness should be made carefully, as it determines one aligns with hellish beliefs or embraces the radiant realm of pure awareness.
determines whether one aligns with hellish beliefs or embraces, determines whether I suffer because of experience. Formless awareness.
Spins 40 odd degrees.
Of eternally. Okay. And then there's a key message there.
Mhm. The key message of this section is that sin is a mistaken belief rooted in the ego's illusion of separation, and it is crucial to recognize that sin is not real. Awakening involves correcting errors, letting go of sin, and embracing the truth of my eternal, innocent nature.
I'm sure that I recognize sin is not real. Awakening involves correcting this error. Letting go of sin as its consequences in when they arise. My dream and embracing the truth of my eternal innocent nature. Said. Yeah, let's read that again. I think we're correct to that.
Yeah. The key message of this section is that sin is a mistaken belief rooted in my false belief in separation. And it is crucial that I recognize that sin is not real. Awakening involves correcting this error by letting go of sin and its consequences seemingly arise in my dream and embracing the truth of my eternal, innocent nature instead.
So very simple, actually. Key message. Just let go of the belief in sin, that it's real, that it's permanent, that it demands punishment. And, just drop all the consequences of it. That's how you undo it. When you drop the consequences, then you must be denying its cause as well. Now, no consequences equals no cause. And so that's how we do it practically. See the consequences of sin and guilt, and then we deny them. We deny the consequences, we must also deny the cause. And so we're denying that the sin has a cause, and freeing our mind experientially through that letting go of whatever we were letting go, whatever we call on to let go of. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, any last comments, questions, thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's
Otherwise, we can do a meditation on it if you like.
yes. Do you not have a thing at 7?
Let me just check. Actually, supposed to. Kim hasn't arrived. Possibility to move the session by 30 minutes. Yes, that works. So it'll give us time to do a meditation.
Okay. Yeah.
You just message me. 1858. Diana. Let me just. So it's 9:30. Yeah, so let's do a meditation, shall we?
Yes, yeah. That'll be good.
Okay. So, all right. So Kim's going to join in half an hour. All right. So let's do it, shall we? Okay. So going to do a meditation on personalized executive summary of chapter 19 called Sin versus Error. So making yourself comfortable, sitting with your feet shoulder width apart, your back straight, cup your hands in your lap, close your eyes. And start off by taking a nice deep breath in through the nose, breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises, the chest rises, subtle flow of air in through the nostrils, pausing at the top of the inhale, maximal inhale breath, scan your mind. And you notice any kind of resistance, any ideas of sin and guilt, fear and anger and attack thoughts are all part of that thought system. So breathe into them, breathe this true awareness, your forms towards perfect love, the light of who you really are, into every pore of your body, every cell, every muscle, every part of your mind, every fiber of your being is in the light. Maximal inhale breath. And you're just going to remind yourself today's book lesson, I lack, or alternative language, I let go, and perfect love lead the way. Let perfect love, I follow perfect love and I let it show me the way. So exhale, have a sense of just releasing all that dysfunction. Blow it all away with the breeze of your breath. Resting in this nice, calm, empty, open, spacious awareness. And you're going to breathe in and out through your nose, in through the nostril and out through the nostrils. Observe the breath flowing in to the nostrils and flowing out of the nostrils. Now I'm going to read you the personalized executive summary of this section. Just breathing in as I read, and then as you exhale, breathe out through your nose and speak these words as affirmations of the truth. So breathing in through the nose, stomach rises, chest rises, pause, hold briefly as you listen. So in the journey of awakening, it is crucial to differentiate, for me to differentiate between error and sin. You exhale and you speak those words. Error can be corrected and made right. Breathe in as you listen to that. Speak it as you exhale. Breathe in again. That sin, if possible, would be irreversible. And then exhale and just let it go. Breathing in again. Sin stems from the belief that minds, not bodies, can attack, rendering the mind guilty unless absolution is offered by mind beyond its own. Breathing in again. Sin seeks punishment. It's taking it for correction, which is clearly a form of insanity. This is clearly insane. And breathing in again. Sin is not merely an error. It has an arrogance. So it passes the notion of making mistakes. Proclaims the reality of attack and justifies guilt. Remember to breathe in as I speak the words and exhale out through your nose as you speak them. Assumes that the extension of perfect love is guilty, having forfeited its innocence and transformed itself into something contrary to perfect love's extension. Breathing in again. Sin distorts the eternal nature of extension and allows opposition and defeat. Cover over your formless awareness of perfect love. It is the underlying illusion fueling the separate self's grandiosity. Aims to change the very essence of perfect love. Breathing in again through the nose, pause and listen to these words. So while the extent of perfect love can be mistaken, deceive itself, and turn against itself with its own thoughts. Cannot truly sin. No action can fundamentally alter its reality or render it genuinely guilty. Sin's purpose is to achieve this change. It remains an impossible concept, an impossible idea. Sin leads to death. But how can the immortal truly die? Belief in separation, belief sin is truth, claiming that innocence is deceitful and purity is arrogance. It replaces extension of perfect love's reality. As extended by your formless awareness of perfect love. With the idea of sinfulness. Seeking to separate its extension from the truth. Belief in separation fiercely defends the idea of sin, deeming it pure and beyond questioning, making it the cornerstone of its defense mechanisms, such as special relationships, belief in separation built its world upon sin, creating an upside down realm, an upside down reality where guilt appears impenetrable. Sin solidifies the foundation of this illusory world. Sin solidifies the foundation of this illusory world, transforming extension from perfect love's idea, perfect love's perfect idea, to the belief in separation's ideal. A world ruled by corruptible bodies, devoid of pure formless awareness. And perfect love. However, I can easily correct this mistake by bringing it to the truth. Serves as the ultimate judge. Faith in sin is impossible. as sin implies faithlessness. My faith in the correction of mistakes is possible. Breathing in again. Keep breathing as I speak these words. And belief in separation staunchly defends the idea that sin is real. Considering it the natural expression of what the extension of perfect love has become. Perceives this as the unchangeable truth, impossible to escape from, and mourns the death of perfect love. That sin supposedly accomplished. Which is a wish born from the belief in separation's delusional madness. Breathing in again, and rather than accepting sin as is real, I should perceive it as a correctable mistake that can be effortlessly escaped. I should choose between sin and the state of pure formless awareness. I must choose between sin and the state of pure formless awareness. Pure formless awareness is perfect love eternally. Makes all the difference. And the key message of this section is that sin is a mistaken belief, rooted in my false belief in separation. And it is crucial I recognize that sin is not real. Awakening involves correcting this error by letting go of sin and its consequences seemingly arising in my dream. Embracing truth of my eternal, innocent nature instead. And so just embrace that truth now. Go into it, feel into it. Allow yourself just to surrender into this deeper awareness, eternal, innocent truth for a minute or so of deep silence. Just experience the innocence that is the antidote to sin. Bask in that. And nothing else to do, nowhere else to go. Just breathe, relax, be still, and experience the beauty of this innocent state, pure formless awareness for a couple of minutes of deep silence. So just gently coming back from this deep state of connected awareness, sinless, innocent state into awareness of the body and the breath, senses and the world. And on the count of three, you're going to open your eyes. So one, just breathing in. Noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises, subtle flow there in through the nostrils. Pausing at the top of the inhale. Smile, scan your mind. Just look for any lurking thoughts of guilt, tears of sin, characterized by a fear of punishment, attack thoughts. This is how it all plays out, how sin is made real. So any of that, you just notice it, observe it casually, and you dismiss it. You recognize it as illusory and blow it away with the breeze of your breath. Blowing away these dark clouds into the nothingness that they really are. And then going, gone. Lower the stomach into the spine, expel the last remaining air out. And you just rest in the stillness, quietness, and the innocence. For a few moments, in the gap between breaths, you can access this state, so portal to the state of pure formless awareness. Try and anchor the state in, and stay in the state, the underlying base state in which you can kind of flow with life. Everything's really happy when you're in this state of pure formless awareness. And just set the intention to stay there. You can use today's lesson to help you. It's in 155. I will step back and let him lead the way, or I let go and allow perfect love to lead the way. So use that in its longer form. You can meditate again on this lesson using one of the meditations I've given you, or a shorter breath break. Of course, use the instructions I've given you in the Telegram or email message. Practice it. Keep you connected to this deeper state of awareness, this truth, eternal truth that lives within you. It can never die, that sin cannot touch. It's the idea that is changeless, it's eternal. The idea of your true self, beyond all illusions. And so you're going to stay connected to this awareness for the rest of the evening and on into tomorrow. So it is said and so it is done. And on the count of 3, open your eyes. So just take a moment, look around, observing objects in the room around you. So make no attempt to select anything. No need to select or avoid anything. Just observe whatever's going on. Without judgment, just in a state of innocence, of pure formless awareness. Close your eyes, notice that awareness is still there. Open your eyes, notice. It's the same awareness, irrespective of whether your eyes are closed or open. So you learn that it's one awareness, it's your true nature. It's eternal, it's innocent, it's not touched by sin. And in that nature, you rest in peace and happiness. Which is what I wish for you for the rest of the evening and on into tomorrow. Good practicing and much peace and love, and have a deep sleep. So that brings us to the end of the session and the meditation. So, thank you, Elaine.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
And yeah, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Yeah. I'll wait until.
Okay.
Not sure what the time are you? Yeah. Oh yeah, because
what's your time now?
I'm working in the shop till about 2:30, 3 o'clock.
Okay. So shall we do an evening session?
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to see my son, so make it say 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
So is that all right?
Yeah. Good. Yeah, perfect.
All right. Okay. See you then.
See you then. Thank you. Namaste. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so thanks to Elaine. Next session at 6 p.m. UK time, that's 7 p.m. SA time. So join us then if you can. And yeah, look forward to that. And wishing you an innocent and holy evening. Namaste. Which means the innocent self in me acknowledges and honors that same innocent self in you.